Great. Well, thanks everybody for joining the third session of the day. As you know, in the middle session of all of the webinars, we are doing a UXPin demo. In this case, we are going to be explaining how UXPin can improve your Agile UX process, and that's where we have introduced one of our product consultants, Lindsey Meredith here. And the format will be the same as the previous webinars. She'll do a quick demo, and then any questions you might have, you can feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. We probably won't get to all of them, but we'll do our best to answer a few, and then we can follow up through email afterwards to answer the rest. But yeah, without further ado, I'll kick this over to Lindsey, and we can get started.
Awesome, thanks, Jerry. All right, let me go ahead and get my screen share started, make sure that's working. Jerry, just want to confirm, can you see that?
Yep, I see it just fine.
Awesome. All right, well, I'll go ahead and kick things off. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I really hope you're enjoying the first day of the UX Virtual Summit. Already today, we've had some great talks on creating design culture in the enterprise and scaling design systems. And we're super excited for what's to come the rest of the week as well. A quick intro, my name's Lindsey. I'm a product consultant here at UXPin. I've been with UXPin for just about 3 years, during which time I've had the privilege of working with design teams around the world, as well as our own internal product team here at UXPin. My job basically consists of helping our customers to scale their design process within their organizations without sacrificing product quality or consistency. In addition to our speaker lineup this week, we've put together a series of UXPin demos for you. So today I'm going to kick it off and share with you some of the most common challenges that our customers face on the road to scaling an Agile process and how UXPin helps them to overcome that. Tomorrow, we're going to zoom into a more specific piece of the process, collaboration through the dev handoff. And we'll also have a special announcement with the release of a new feature tomorrow, so that's going to be exciting. And later this week, on Thursday and Friday, my colleague Ben Gramillion will be with you to demo hi-fi and lo-fi collaborative prototyping in the UXPin editor. So let's kick things off. Over the past 5 years, we've helped teams all over the world to implement a better design process with UXPin. The teams who use UXPin are diverse in the roles and the size of the teams, the industries they're in, the products they make. However, they all have similar goals and face similar roadblocks along the way. A few years back, when we first released the app, teams were just getting their feet wet with UX. They were looking for a tool to speed up the wireframing process, and later a tool to help them go hi-fi and interactive so they could better communicate with stakeholders, fellow designers, and development teams. However, today, wireframing and prototyping is a given, and there are lots of tools on the market that solve that piece. Teams that come to UXPin today are looking for something more. They're looking for continuity in their process, strategies to improve communication, and ways to be fast, nimble, and effective. They're basically looking for a platform to help them be more agile. When a person takes on the task of evolving their organization's process, they're faced with the reality that the existing processes, tools, infrastructure, even culture make it difficult, if not impossible, to be agile. This is especially true for enterprise teams, and there are lots of ways to improve. And that's where UXPin comes in. We give teams a framework for a predictable and scalable Agile UX process. We help teams to simplify their process so they can free up time and brain space to focus on building great products. What's preventing teams from being scalable and agile today comes down to two main themes: an undefined or uncomplicated process and difficulty communicating quickly. What I see often in organizations is that people are using a variety of different tools. Some of them are using a certain tool for designing, another tool for handoff, another tool for feedback, another tool for documentation. And this lack of structure creates a lot of questions and confusion across the team. Things such as version control become difficult. You know, am I looking at the latest version? What's the best way to get feedback on this? Which button style should I use for this product? These are all questions the team faces on a day-to-day basis that really slows them down. The result is a lack of consistency, both in the process and then ultimately sometimes in the product. It can also create strained relationships between departments, slow iteration cycles, delayed releases, and it really just affects the team, right? It slows you guys down. So we want to give you guys a tool to help enable an Agile process. And there's a few steps that we follow to help teams roll this out. First and foremost, we want to help you simplify your process. This is essential to helping people go fast. We want to remove a lot of those questions and variables so people don't have to second guess before they move on to the next phase. Second, we want to increase accessibility. Especially with remote teams, it's so important that your teammates have access to the most up-to-date versions of the files they need 24/7, right? Because you may be asleep when your teammate needs to work. Third, getting feedback can be hard, so consolidating that to one process will help you create good habits, not just within your team, but also within your external stakeholders. So we want to centralize the feedback process for you. Fourth, we want to help you guys with your design systems. We can't say enough how important it is to give your teams the right building blocks and ensure consistency in your brand. This eliminates errors, redundant work, and the handoffs. UXPin wants to give you an easy way to build a living design system to share across your team. And last, automating and enabling a easy and collaborative handoff for development, right? So once you finish the design phase, we're not done. So UXPin helps here as well. All right, next we're going to go ahead and hop into the UXPin product and show you around a little bit. Let's go over here to my next tab, and we're going to jump into the homepage of UXPin. This is our dashboard. So UXPin dashboard is your team's digital design studio. It serves as the repository and the single source of truth for your team. Your team's files will be organized and available for the team to work on 24/7. Enterprise companies use UXPin user management to rebuild their org structure and distribute administration tasks across the team. Project groups also allow you to easily manage people and projects across a large organization. As you can see in project group management here, you can divide up your people into groups and assign those groups to certain team members. So you can quickly distribute tasks, and this also makes it so that when your teammates log into UXPin and access the dashboard, they're only going to see what's relevant to them and be able to instantly get to work on their projects. The dashboard also helps you to publicize and define your process. Project statuses give your team a mechanism to make the process visible and keep the entire team up to date as you move through the stages. This is totally customizable. So for example, on my spec mode project here, I have this set of statuses. If I cruise over to my art gallery app, you can see we have a different set of statuses here. And these are defined by a team lead, right, who is going to be able to define the process with the team, make it public, and then keep everyone up to date as you roll through the different phases. So we're automating a ton of notification tasks for you, allowing everyone to stay up to date. Next on the list was centralizing all your design files. So let's go ahead then and hop into a project. Within a project is where your team's going to access all the files they need. In terms of collaboration, UXPin is like Google Docs for design, right? So these are living documents within UXPin that your team can not only share, and download or check out, but they're living documents that they can co-design live, right, within the application. So rather than designing on your desktop alone and syncing to some shared drive, you guys can design live in real time. This also means that your team has access to the files they need 24/7 without having to request them, hunt them down, or worry about the most recent version, since you're all working on the most up-to-date version. UXPin allows you for extremely fast turnaround for prototyping, but also for feedback and revisions. Your project team lives here on the left-hand side. These people are going to be updated for all the important changes that happen throughout the process. You can see this in our activities thread on the right-hand side. You can also integrate UXPin with Slack to get updates right within your Slack channel. This can be used for requests for feedback and approvals process, creating new iterations, adding new files to your projects, anything that you want to share with your team and keep them up to date on. UXPin not only allows you to design and wireframe and prototype from scratch within the application, but you can bring in outside files as well. And this is going to help you guys with that continuity in your process, right? So even if some files need to be created outside of UXPin, you can bring them into UXPin so that you can collaborate together and bring them through that unified process. You can see here that you can bring in any of your standard file formats. We have JPEGs, PNGs, docs, PowerPoints, PDFs. And we also have plugins and integrations for Photoshop and Sketch. This is pretty cool because it allows you to import in these files, and it doesn't flatten the files. So it gives you access to the layers so that you can prototype on-screen interactions with these previously flat files. This will cut down the documentation you need. It's going to improve the design handoff and ultimately improve that whole prototyping experience for your team. All right, so next we're going to talk about centralizing the feedback process and getting fast, actionable feedback on your design. There's two ways that you can get feedback in UXPin, a more formal way and then a quick and easy feedback mechanism that you can use for all your iterations. From the projects page here, you can send a file out for an official approval. So, a lot of questions that our teams have before they use UXPin is that they, have trouble defining done. They have trouble getting an approval. So we wanted to give teams an easy way to send a file out for approval. So you can do that from right within the application at any important point or a good finishing point with your file. Send that out for approval and record that right within the application. So this is a really great centralized process for your team. Makes a formerly, pretty hard task something really easy to do. Next, if we hop over to preview mode, we can talk about the most common way that people get feedback in UXPin. It's actually a really fun and easy way to get feedback, and it really enables even non-designers in your organization to really feel part of the process. Preview mode here is where you're going to see your designs come to life, right? So if I click in here, I can interact with this design. I have my hover interactions, right? So you can go fully interactive hi-fi. If you're just on the bottom line webinar, you saw some great interactions that you had built there as well. But this is also where you're going to gather feedback. So if I go up here to comment mode, I can instantly see all the comments I have on this prototype. Let me go ahead and drop a pin. All right, so once I drop a pin, this is how I'm going to give feedback. And feedback can be gathered by your internal team as well as external stakeholders. For our UXPin team members, you have two threads. You have internal team comments. You also have external public comments so that you can keep your internal conversation separate than the external conversation. I can type in a team member's name to @mention them, and it allows me a quick, easy way to ask a question and get feedback. This is really helpful for audience members, external stakeholders, development teams, non-designers, whoever you need to get feedback from in your process. UXPin also supports an Agile iteration cycle because what it allows you to do is to gather around this feedback and then take that feedback and save it to an iteration before you move on to the next phase of design. So what you're able to do, right? So let's say I put my project into the status of getting feedback. I send this out, I gather my feedback, and then I can come in, I can take all the comments on the page, I can assign them to different members on my team so that everyone can handle those tasks. Then I can come into the UXPin editor, and I can create an iteration. And an iteration will help me save an important moment in time for my file so that I can remember the different phases that we went through and also the feedback that we received along those phases. Copying all the comments there and save. And it's that easy. So now my team can come through here. They can work through our comments like a task list, address all these issues, and move on to the next phase of design. The next piece of the process is to allow you guys to centralize and distribute shareable libraries in your design system so that you can create consistency in your product and eliminate a lot of redundant work. One thing that's really special about UXPin libraries is that they're interactive libraries. So these aren't just flat buttons. You can build fully interactive with all the behavioral animations right in there and put those in libraries to share across your team. It's a fast, central way to roll out a design system within your tool. And what's also really great about it is that whenever you update a button, create new elements for that library, they're immediately usable and searchable by your entire team. So let's go ahead and go to a design system library here, and we can cruise through this. So in this design system library, you can see I have interactions built in, right? I can see my hover states. I can see all of the interactions related to these buttons. This is going to allow you guys to systemize not only the styles, but behavioral interactions, making sure that buttons, forms, menus look, feel, and behave in a consistent manner. And for everything within your teammates' account is keyword searchable. So when they're in the editor and they're searching for, buttons or elements, this is going to be easily accessible for them. All they need to do is do a Control F, type in tab menu, and then one that you designed, the one that's consistent for your brand, is going to be available for them to use. Tomorrow, we're going to take a deeper dive into collaboration through the handoff. And to give you guys a bit of a sneak peek of that, we're going to be looking more deeply into spec mode, which is a newer feature in UXPin that allows you guys to automate the documentation of your elements within UXPin. Also allows you to append specs to those and to help roll out a better documentation process in the handoff. So I hope you join us tomorrow for that demo as well.
Great job, Lindsey. Everybody, before we get into the questions, I'm just going to run the same quick poll here again, just to make sure that we are capturing your guys' needs appropriately. We've got a few questions here, Lindsey, and so I'll just go through them, and we will try to get through what we can. So the first question, this is sort of a very tactical question from Roxanne, is does UXPin support EPS vector files outside of Sketch? So could you import those into UXPin?
I'm actually not sure the answer to that one, Jerry.
Okay,
so.
we can check with the team here real quickly. Actually, we've got the team on chat right now, so they can probably just
I saw Radek was on there.
Box. Yep, we've got Radek and Krishtek, who are both on the product team, who can answer those questions right there. And then the next question for us here is, let's see here. So, yeah, so somebody was just curious, let's say if they wanted to create a style guide or a library for their team, how would they go about doing that in UXPin? Is that a fairly simple process?
Yeah, there's a couple ways that someone can do that within UXPin. Let's go ahead and hop into the editor real quick, and I can give you guys a quick example of this. So you can create libraries from scratch within UXPin. This is what a lot of our customers do, right? If I do a Control F, I type in button, you can see we have hundreds of buttons to choose from. So you can grab them, style them to meet your needs, make them usable or reusable. You can also take existing assets you have in Photoshop or Sketch and bring those into UXPin, and you'll retain access to all of those elements, so you can save those into libraries. In terms of taking an element and saving it into your style guide, it's as easy as taking that element, grab that element here, doing a right click, and adding it to your custom library. And you're going to be able to create an unlimited number of libraries in UXPin Enterprise, and you'll be able to save that right there. And so the minute you save that element into your library, it's shareable. So when you go into your libraries here, you have access to all your libraries. You can share those with the team, and it's that easy. Gotcha.
And the next question we've got here is really about roles in UXPin. So somebody was curious, can we assign people roles? So for instance, if somebody's a product owner or a business analyst, how do we manage those roles and permissions?
Yeah, definitely. We can hop into team management and take a quick look at the roles that we offer.
Gotcha.
So within the user management system, you have a variety of roles. Owner and admin would be the top role. We also have managers. This is great for like design managers or team leads. creators, these would be your designers or anyone in your process that's doing design work in the editor. And we also have collaborators and developers. So these are the non-designer roles, people who, you know, will be providing feedback, will be accessing specs and documentation, but not necessarily doing the design work. So you can use these roles to, you know, allocate what permissions people have within the system as you scale out this product for your organization. And also this is really great for distributing your administrative tasks so that, you know, as your account gets really large, you know, we have teams of hundreds that use UXPin together, all of those administration roles aren't falling on one person.
Right, right. And just to clarify here, a couple questions we've gotten. This webinar, as well as every webinar in the series, is going to be recorded and then sent to all the people who registered here afterwards. And the next question will then be, let's see. So the next question we've got here is, going through the list here. So somebody was curious about how the team libraries and the smart elements kind of work with each other. So for instance, they were curious that, let's say if I drag a component from my library and then I updated that component, is there a way to make sure that that doesn't update the original component in the library? Is there sort of a way to just kind of desync and then sync back the elements?
Yeah, that's a great question. So UXPin has two different types of elements that address both of those. So custom elements are ones that you build into your custom libraries here, such as this button I just grabbed. So these elements make up your design system, your style guides, and are totally shareable. And what happens is when a user grabs an element from that library and drops it on the canvas, it detaches. So it's no longer connected to the master element. So if I need to come in and change the text here for my use case, I can do that without affecting the original in the library. Now, let's say that in my prototype, I'm going to be using like the same top nav or the same button or same drop down across many different screens. I can then take that element and create a smart element with it. So when I create a smart element, what I'm doing is creating an element that is linked. So now, anytime that I use this element in any of my other pages, it's going to be linked, right? So if I update this, oh, it looks like I created this one last demo. Let's grab the right one. So if I grab this button, it's going to be linked, right? So anytime I update this button, it will update that one as well. So you can do both.
Gotcha. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. And the next question here that we will get into is, all right, so all right. Got it. So the next question here is about, does UXPin produce production grade code, or is it more of just kind of like hi-fi prototypes?
That's a great question. So UXPin, you know, we can't create production ready code. This is, you know, something that's based on standards and practices within your organization that there's really no way for us to replicate in an automated environment. But what we do create is code that your team can reference to, you know, rebuild exactly what you've designed, right? And this is something we're going to talk about more for collaborating through the handoff tomorrow. We're going to talk about spec mode and documentation and how we automate this. But it's definitely code generated for reference to help your developers create exactly what you build and eliminate confusion, but it doesn't replace that work.
Right, right. And on a related question on the collaboration side, somebody has a question. Does a client need to sign up for UXPin in order to be able to leave comments on my design?
No, they don't. That's a great question. So let's pop back over to preview mode and talk about comments. So when you get a comment on your designs, you have two threads. You have public and you have team. So for team comments, you do need to be a UXPin team member. So these are internal comments that only your internal team members will see. For people that are not part of your UXPin account, they can absolutely leave feedback. We want them to, right? We want you to be able to get as much input as you need at every phase of the design process. These people will show up within the public comments thread. And that's a great way for you guys to distinguish your internal versus external stakeholders and feedback.
Right, right. And the next question we've got is from John, who is curious about how does UXPin handle collaborative editing with many users on the same document? Is that possible? And if so, how does that work?
Yes, so the UXPin editor is, as I mentioned before, it's like Google Docs for design, right? So these are living files that they're central, right? So you're not working alone on your desktop and then like publishing them to a shared drive. You're logging into your cloud design studio where you guys can design live together. So if you're designing UXPin and one of your coworkers logs in as well, you're going to see that they're in the editor with you. It's going to give you an indicator here on the sitemap as to which page they're working on. And if they're designing in the editor, whatever they're designing is going to be locked down so that you can't design over the top of them. So you're going to have total visibility that they're going to be working alongside you.
Right, right. And then Mikolaj has a question, just a quick question about iterations. He's just wondering, what can I actually do with my previous iterations of a prototype? So can I go back and make more changes to them, or are they sort of locked in place?
Great question. So for iterations, you have a couple of different things that you can do. One, you can view them, right? So I can click on this iteration, I can view it. It's a total working copy, so it's totally interactive. This also serves as a tool if maybe you want to get feedback or share, like not the most current version, right? Maybe you want to do some design work, but you don't want people to see what you're working on currently. You can create an iteration and share that out and gather feedback on that. You can also roll it back. So iterations serve as a backup for you guys. So rather than creating versions to share files, since you're all working on the most current version all the time, you create versions at important moments along the design process. And so if you ever need to roll it back, you can retrieve old versions as well. Right. But in terms of editing, you can't edit these unless you retrieve them and make them current. So they're going to act as like totally locked down design history for you guys to refer back to.
Right, right. And then a quick question about password and protection. Can a design in UXPin be password protected?
Great question. So yes, it can. So you have a couple different ways that you can share designs. This URL is the most commonly used. The permanent URL always links to the most up-to-date version of your prototype. You can also text designs to someone's mobile device. If you're designing for mobile, that's a really cool experience. You can share through Slack. We also have a couple export for offline versions of your prototype as well. But for all of your shares, you can password protect those designs.
Gotcha. And then somebody has a question about the fidelity sort of spectrum at UXPin. So we've sort of shown some of the hi-fi stuff, and they're curious, does UXPin also support the lo-fi end of prototyping? This person is just wondering when they want to present to clients without getting them too focused on the details.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something that we're going to cover more in depth in our demos later this week on Thursday and Friday with my colleague Ben. But just want to share with you a quick example. UXPin rapid wireframing is actually, that was our first offering to the market. So you can absolutely start out lo-fi in UXPin. We actually recommend that, right? There's sort of two fidelities. There's visual fidelity and there's interactive fidelity. So you can stay visually lo-fi while building out your interactions, at which point you can then go hi-fi. And you can do this all on the same prototype in one continuous process and not have to rebuild through each phase of design.
Right, right. And then the next question we've got here is older version of that item. The next question here is, Somebody was curious about how the sync between Sketch and UXPin works. If you could just discuss a little bit more that workflow of Sketch and UXPin and how the two communicate.
Yeah, definitely. So the Sketch integration, it works really well with UXPin. What it allows you to do is to take files that you have designed in Sketch and to sync them into UXPin. Once they're synced in UXPin, it's going to retain access to all the layers, so you can interactively prototype with those files. It's also going to give you access to all the properties within spec mode, something we'll talk about in more detail. And how this also works is, if you need to make any design changes to your Sketch files, you can make those changes in Sketch, and then you can resync that file back into UXPin. So it sort of works like a commit, right? So you make changes in Sketch in terms of design, and you push those updates into UXPin, and it won't break any of the interactive or documentation or spec work that you've done in UXPin. So that's a great way to stay synced and make updates to the design while retaining all the prototyping work that you've done, and also all the comments, right? All the collaboration work that you've done in UXPin as well.
Right, gotcha. And somebody was just asking a follow-up for code design. Can two people be actively editing the same page at the same time in UXPin?
Yes, they can. So within the editor, you can be live co-designing with a colleague. You'll be able to see, like, for example, I have this element or this group of elements selected. My co-designer will be able to see what I'm selected on, what I'm working on, and that will also be locked down so that we won't accidentally design over the top of each other, but you can design live together.
Gotcha. Yep. And I think we're pushing up here on time, so unfortunately we'll only be able to take one more question. But the next question we are looking at here is somebody was just curious if UXPin supports responsive prototypes, desktop to mobile.
Yeah, indeed we do. So this is another good example of that. So I have my iPhone breakpoint here. I also have website breakpoints as well. So within a single prototype, you can design for multiple breakpoints. And UXPin also gives you a head start when doing this. So when you have your mobile prototype, right, you've laid this out, you've built your sitemap, you've created interactions between your pages. Now it's time to optimize that design for the next screen size. You can take all that work and you can copy it over to your next breakpoint. So you won't need to rebuild the interactions and completely start from scratch. All you'll need to do for that next breakpoint is optimize those design components for that new UI or those new screen dimensions.
Gotcha. And I think that'll be the last question that we take here. If you guys have more questions, you are more than welcome to forward them along here. I'm going to go ahead and drop in our inquiry here. We're generally very fast to respond. Just hello@uxpin.com, and we will get that routed to the right people on our product team, especially for the more technical questions. We saw a few of those here today that we won't have the time to answer live, but we're more than happy to answer through email and make sure you guys get the knowledge that you need. So, and yes, all the sessions are recorded and they're going to be sent afterwards. Here is the next session that we're about to start in 10 minutes. It's mission-based UX strategy, and this is with Ben Judy. And I have just dropped in the Zoom link to our next session that's starting in about 10 minutes here. And yeah, otherwise, thanks everybody for joining the demo here today. And again, if you have more questions, especially specific or technical questions, we are more than happy to answer them at hello@uxpin.com. Feel free to forward those along and we will do our best to get you the specifics. And yes, tomorrow, the demo during the same time slot is going to be focusing specifically on collaboration with developers and how we support handoffs, specifications, and documentation. I saw a few questions about that here today. They will be answered definitely tomorrow. So yes, thanks again everybody for joining us. Lindsey, great job, and hope to see you guys at the next session, which I am dropping in here once more, and that'll start in 10 minutes. So great, hope to see everybody there. All right.